Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Rabinovitz, and I will um, be your host for this evening. We're presenting Save On, Not Just For, the Cost of College, and I have with me the team from the Green Education Foundation. I have known Barbara Miller, who will be our primary presenter for, at least the last 10 years, if not longer. I was very close with her former boss, JJ, who we lost in the last year, very unfortunately. But she has stepped into his shoes and is doing a fabulous job in those shoes. And I'm going to let her and her team take it away from here. So here's how to save on, not just for the cost of college.
Thank you, Jason. My name is Barbara Miller, and I'm here with the rest of my team. And why you should listen to us. George, you want to talk first?
Sure. Thank you, Barbara.
Yes.
I am a veteran in the financial services industry. I have done banking, finance, and risk management. I've been blessed to have collaborated and worked with Fortune 100 and 500 companies throughout my career. My expertise is to help individuals, business owners, professionals, and their families to improve their overall financial situation and make their dreams, goals, and objectives become a reality. We accomplish this by working with a team of advisors and business alliance partners like Score at the Top on a variety of income and protection solutions, including the analysis and planning that needs to be done throughout the financial aid process to maximize the opportunities of getting free money for college, regardless of your assets, income level, or net worth, avoiding the traditional mistakes people make on a system that is designed to take advantage of you. We help people plan their life, accomplish their dreams, and preserve their legacy. Thank you for making the time to attend our workshop today. Hope the information you will receive until the very end of the workshop will be worth your while. Ken?
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Ken Tolchin, co-founder of Green Education Foundation. With a career track that includes public accounting, controllership, insurance, and financial services, I've spent 30 years helping people with their financial well-being. There's a looming retirement crisis in our country, and my primary focus has been to educate clients on the institutional threats to surviving their retirement years and employing strategies to protect their assets and create a lifetime stream of income. So why college planning? Well, college planning goes hand in hand with retirement planning, as many people raid their retirement funds to pay for college, and we aim to assist you in preventing that. But the story is more personal for me. 15 years ago, when my son entered college, my wife and I made all the classic mistakes and cost ourselves literally tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship money from a school that's fairly generous with awards. We got nothing, nada, zilch. I'll spare you the details. It's too painful to rehash, but we didn't know any better. That is my passion. That is why I'm here today, to make sure that you understand the system and that we help put you in a position to use it to your advantage. Our excellent Barbara Miller is now going to take over and give the presentation, and will be available a little bit later on for some questions if you have.
Right. And I'm an expert in admissions and student positioning. I've helped thousands of families save tens of thousands of dollars on the cost of college and guide their students to their dream fit school. And since March of 2012, I've worked with presenting over 300 of these free educational workshops on how to navigate through the maze of college planning without financial, emotional, or mental stress. Now, while I've not previously worked in the education arena, I've spent over 35 years in recruiting and human resources. And let me just point out that getting noticed by top schools is parallel to getting noticed by a top corporation. You're competing for a spot, and they're looking for the best candidate to fit in that spot. So I provide my expertise with career research and selection, student positioning, and helping the students pick their best fit school in school selection. And we provide step-by-step guides to creating resumes, recommendations, admissions essays, and admissions applications. So now, during this presentation, we are going to ask you to, participate sometimes in some of our questions. So I want to start with this. If anybody wants to, if they have the opportunity to unmute themselves, to tell us why you're here, if you want to take a moment to tell us in advance what some of your concerns are. And if not, then I'll just go in and I'll tell you why, another reason why you're here. And that's because you want your student choosing the right school for the right reasons at the right price. That's what we do. The information is going to be general in nature, seeing that everyone's personal financial situation is complex and very different. And due to this, we will offer a free initial consultation where we'll take 60 minutes on one-on-one time to review your specific and individual situation. In that initial consultation, we're going to discuss your student, where you currently are in the process, what your goals, objectives, and obstacles are. And when we get to the end of the conversation, if you like what we discuss and it sounds like a good fit for your family, then we can discuss the next step. After all, college is a huge investment and the process is complex with several hidden steps and obstacles along the way. So, our goal is to help you achieve a great outcome for your student and your finances. Our other goal is to educate the community through this community outreach program. So we're trying to do these workshops, educate people as much as humanly possible. So if you enjoy the information and you're part of a company or a group or organization or PTA or anything like that, where you've got a group and you want us to come out, just bring that to our attention. We can arrange that for you as well. And we are also in the future going to have workshops on IRMA and Social Security, long-term care, financial aid changes, and more. So keep an eye out for some future emails. Now, we've got a lot of information to cover. And at this end of the workshop, we will ask you to take a minute, and if we're going to have a question and answer session. But we're going to cover about 2 hours of information and about 45 minutes. It's going to feel a lot like this. So let's start out with where your students are. Do you have a student in 10th grade, 9th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, middle school, elementary school, kindergarten or younger? This information is actually going to be more relevant to those of you who have students in 10th grade and younger. Although, of course, parents with 11th grade and 12th grade students will benefit too. And just to clarify, when I talk about 10th grade, I'm actually talking about the class of 2024. So rising 10th graders. So our agenda today, the current college cost landscape, covering the basics, costly mistakes to avoid, the college funding retirement savings dilemma, and tips for reducing college costs. So let's start by discussing the current college cost landscape. So as you can see, the current cost for 4 years at an in-state public university is about $84,000 minimum. And the cost for 4 years at an elite private university can reach well over $320,000. And that's with the cost of attendance projected to increase about 5% each and every year. And when you take into account that only 43.7% of freshmen will graduate in 4 years, the figures skyrocket. And if your student is interested in one of the out-of-state public universities, you can expect the cost to be approximately $45,000 to $60,000 per year. And these schools are aware that they're popular and they don't need to offer scholarships or money to entice students to apply or attend. And they do not give any need-based aid to out-of-state students. And this is all for one child. So here's the good news. Most people think, and most professional advisors included, that college planning is just saving for college. In fact, really good college planning is all about saving on the cost of college. And when it comes to college planning, while we are consistent in the strategies we use, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So your family is going to use a unique combination and blends of strategies. So if you know the ins and outs of the process and you better understand it, then you can also turn the process around so that you manage it and you could take advantage of a process as opposed to the process taking advantage of you. So let's look about covering the basics that you need to know. So first, I always like to show people this is the simplified version of the current student financial aid delivery system. And you can see how complex and confusing it is. So how many people feel that they can navigate this? Yeah, I feel your pain. Let's start with some key terms. So what you're going to end up seeing before you is the basic formula for financial aid. And we speak in acronyms, or as I like to say, alphabet soup. So here's the big formula. Cost of attendance, you're going to hear that referred to as COA, is the retail sticker price. So each and every year, the schools must supply the Department of Education with their published rate. The cost of attendance covers hard costs and soft costs. So hard costs, those are the costs that you'll be billed for typically twice a year. Your tuition and fees, your dorm, your meal plan, health insurance. And I include health insurance because if you do not tell the school that your child is covered by your health care, your health insurance plan, you're going to be charged for it. Soft costs are variable costs such as book supplies, transportation, and miscellaneous. Now, the cost of attendance is the worst case scenario. You do not decide on what schools will be affordable based on the cost of attendance. And relax, I'm going to show you how to calculate what your cost will be. And that's the number that you need to know. That number is referred to as your student aid index, which you will hear as the term SAI. Now, for those that have been following the news, this was formerly called your expected family contribution, or EFC. And I believe as of 2022-23, it's going to be called your student aid index, or SAI. It takes into account parents' income and assets and student income and assets, rolls it into a proprietary formula, similar to your FICO score for credit, and then calculates a number that they believe is the amount of money that you as a family can afford to invest annually in education for that student. So the rest of the formula, you subtract the family contributions from the cost of attendance, and you're left with financial need. So to back up a little bit, on December 21st, Congress passed the FAFSA Simplification Act. This is doing away with the expected family contribution, or EFC, and it's replaced with the Student Aid Index, or SAI. And colleges use the SAI to determine your eligibility for financial aid. And it is the minimum that you're expected to contribute towards college costs. Here's an important fact. They do not take into account any debt, such as your bills, car payments, credit card debt, taxes you may owe, none of that. They also do not consider anymore if you have more than one student in school or in college. So here's the changes. First of all, excuse me one second. The first allowance you're going to get is your income protection allowance. The Department of Education allows a portion of your income to be exempt from the financial aid formula. This is actually going to increase, partially to compensate for the fact that the formula no longer makes allowances for having more than one student in college. Your assets are going to take a double hit. The parent asset protection allowance will decrease, meaning that more of your assets will be assessed in the student aid index. And here's the biggie. The asset assessment will increase from 5.6% to more than double at 12%. The student income protection allowance will increase from 6420 to 9410. So at least a little bit of good news. But keep in mind that any money over the 9410 is going to be assessed at 50%. That's whether the student is independent or dependent. This is partially as a result of some wealthy families emancipating their students so that they would qualify for financial aid. And the student asset assessment is going to remain at 20%. So let's imagine that you're a family with $100,000 in total income plus $100,000 in assets in Florida prepaid. And although your initial student aid index is about 25,000, you employ some strategies and lower your student aid index to 15,000. Okay, so now you have established that you have a need above $15,000. Well, guess what? It doesn't mean that you're getting anything. Schools are not required to cover your need. So there's 3 critical questions to which you need to know the answers. First question is, what percentage of need does the school cover? Ideally, you're looking for a school that's offering 100% of need or close to that. But as you can see in this example, and this is a public university, although we have a financial need of 8486, the school does not meet all of your need, and it leaves some unmet need. And who pays for that? Well, you do. And the aid doesn't have to be all gift aid. Many schools factor student loans and even Parent Plus loans. So the second question you need to ask is, what is the breakdown between gift and self-help? Self-help, that includes work study loans, whether they be Perkins loans, student direct loans, or Parent Plus loans. So in this example, again, if they give 60% gift and 40% self-help, let's pretend there's a school that gives 75% gift and 25% self-help. You could actually end up paying significantly less at the second one because of that. Okay, so in this, your real cost or out-of-pocket cost is the sum of your student aid index of 15,000, your unmet need, and the self-help for a total of $20,838. Spoiler alert, for these examples, we are not including any possible state merit aid, such as Bright Futures, or any institutional merit aid. We are only looking at need-based aid. And one of the reasons that we don't include merit aid or Bright Futures when determining our out-of-pocket costs is because neither are guaranteed. Bright Futures, which many of you are depending on, almost had major cuts and changes. One of them being that your student's Bright Futures scholarship would be reduced by the number of AP, IB, ACE dual enrollment credits that they earned. Of course, we devoted a significant amount of time and effort to prevent this, but you need to be aware that this may not be around when your students are ready to attend college. Going to use a different example of a private college. And as you can see, its cost of attendance almost triple that of the public university example. But we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to subtract the student aid index, and hold on one second. Now it's going to probably give me 3 things. Yep. And as you can see, our need is a lot more. But as you can also see, look what happens when you look at the aid package. The entire financial need is met. So there's no gap. So no gap to add to the cost of your student aid index of $15,000. Furthermore, the private school gives 97% gift aid and only 3% self-help. As it turns out, because of the big difference in the ability of the private schools to meet your financial need, the school that appeared to be out of reach for your family is actually going to be a lot less out of pocket. Going to end up costing you almost $4,000 less, and that's per year. So hold on one second. I apologize. My PowerPoint's just taking some time here to get you caught up onto everything. So to tell you a little bit about private schools, they have the money to give to your student. And also your average graduation rate, this is the third question you want to ask, and that's the average length of time to graduate for your school. So for your private schools, it's about 4.2 years. For your public schools, it's about 5.8 years to graduate. That means a private school that may actually be more expensive upfront per year still could end up being cheaper in the long run if your student's going to be there for less time. And there's a number of different variables of why your student might take more than 4 years to graduate, such as impacted classes, your general education classes they can't get into, changing their majors, not being prepared and taking enough AP or IB or dual enrollment credits, not taking enough credits each semester while they're in college. So one of the things we do is to guide your student to graduate in 4 years or less. And this all starts with your student positioning. So student positioning is going to take on a lot of different factors. One of them, the most important thing, is we start it the freshman year. That's right, freshman year. So we're going to teach your student how to develop good few study habits, your study skills, your test management, time management, reading comprehension, and test taking. Your student should also be working on student positioning, which includes matching careers that fit their personality traits, their natural attributes, their work importance factors, and their passions and interests. They should be making sure that they're in extracurricular activities that align with their passions or interests or complement them. And just so you know, extracurricular activities include clubs, organizations, community service, volunteer work. And your student should be taking steps to earn a leadership position by their junior year. They should be improving their test taking skills with the Duke Tip program, PSAT, SAT. As a side note, SAT no longer offers the optional essay portion, and they also have stopped offering the SAT subject tests. So a good source for SAT, ACT test prep, we refer everybody back to Score at the Top. Because merit aid is determined by your students' cumulative GPA over 4 years, their ACT and SAT test scores, their depth of involvement in extracurricular activities, and their length and focus of community service over 4 years. So once your student has positioned themselves to stand out, it's important that they pick the right schools for the right reasons, meaning that the school is an academic fit and a social fit at the right price, meaning that you're able, ready, and willing to pay what you'll be expected to pay. And I put them in that order for a reason. First is to consider is your ability to pay. Secondly, are the funds to be used for college going to be there when you need them? Meaning, do you have them in a guaranteed growth, and will they be liquid? Back in 2008, there were a lot of people that came into our office clutching their Morgan Stanley statements because the market crashed just as their students were going to school and they lost 40%. Anyways, and third is just because you're able to pay the $20,000 to $80,000 per year, it doesn't mean that you're willing to pay it. So let's talk about some of the costly mistakes to avoid. First one, not knowing your student aid index. This should be one of the first ones, but not actually knowing the difference between included income and assets and not reportable income and assets for purposes of filing financial aid, you should know, because where you keep your money matters. If you don't know how to legally and ethically position your money properly for purposes of financial aid, you could end up losing thousands in financial aid. Number two, school choices. If a student applies to fewer than 6 schools, the odds of getting a good aid package are much less than if they applied to 10. The colleges talk to each other. They know if you're applying to competing schools or how few you're applying to, and they know that if you're applying to less schools, your choices are restricted. They have the better hand. Now, the opposite applies too. If your student's applying to 15 to 20 schools, the colleges perceive that as a smaller chance of your student selecting their school to attend should they accept your student. So they may be hesitant to offer a spot based on the perceived probability that your student will not attend. Not applying for financial aid. Actually, this should actually be the number one mistake. Lots of parents, for lots of reasons, don't bother to apply. But the two biggest are because they think that you make too much money, or that your student's a straight A or talented or a minority student, so you'll get scholarships. Well, that's a big mistake, because there are many colleges that will not offer merit money unless you file the forms. They will use that merit aid as an incentive to attract a top student to their school that did complete the financial aid forms. So if you're not completing the financial aid forms because you think that you've made too much money, we cannot appeal it to see if we can get you some money or any money. And if some unfortunate event takes place, spoiler alert, COVID, the colleges won't have your information to be in a position to reconsider helping you. Number 4, I got a guy. Unfortunately, CPAs and tax preparers are experts at tax planning and preparation, not financial aid planning. So for an example, a CPA or tax preparer might suggest that you put some or all of your assets in your child's name to save money on taxes. Let me first say that that advice is fantastic for reducing taxes. However, it will most likely kill all, if not most, of your financial aid. Just like if you had a legal issue, you're going to talk to a lawyer that doesn't represent the other side. If you have a tax situation, you're probably going to want to consult the CPA first, not the IRS. So if you're going to ask for expert advice, make sure that they are experts in college planning and funding. Definitely not the college's financial aid department. And let's look at the college funding and retirement savings dilemma. So right now, everybody, of course, wants to make sure that their kids are going to a top school, and you promise them that if they do all the work, you'll help them get in. So, and bear with me, the slides will catch up to me in just a second here. So at this time, you're most likely juggling two financial balls, paying for your house and saving for retirement. And we're going to mess things up because we're going to throw in a third ball of saving and paying for college. Now, do you have a plan to accomplish all three? Because that's important that you're doing that. Or are you going to be forced to choose and end up like these parents? We're here to make sure that you don't put your retirement savings at risk. We want you to avoid this at all costs. So you need to work on a plan to be able to afford all of these without sacrificing any of them. And it's hard to do because the system's going to work against you. So you need to know that the financial aid officer's goal is to protect the assets of the college and give away as little money as possible. Obviously, your job is to use the rules of financial aid to make your contribution to the colleges as small as possible. And as you can see, your objectives are in direct opposition to those of the schools. So let's look at some tips for reducing college costs. The first one is for your student to be a rock star. So when the student's at the top of the applicant pool, the odds of getting a discount go up appreciably. Now, we are in no way dismissing your B student. There are literally thousands of schools where a B student is a top student and will be eligible for merit aid. Again, right school for the right reasons. You want to expand your universe. We find a lot more options by looking at colleges beyond your typical radius that you and your student might impose on yourselves. More importantly, look at schools that have a career services center with a high percentage of students gainfully employed in their chosen career within 90 days of graduating. Either that or being accepted and attending a top graduate med law business school. Let's face it, a degree from a prestigious school isn't worth the paper it's printed on if your student can't get a job. Your student needs to be demonstrating interest. It's an important factor in the admissions decision of many colleges, such as American University and Boston University. Keep in mind that some schools are getting over 50,000 applications. Florida State University last year received over 60,000 applications for approximately 7,500 spots. So it's imperative that your student take steps to get notice so that when they turn in their application, admissions already knows that your student's serious. And you want to create leverage. Creating leverage when we're talking about colleges means applying to schools that compete with each other. Since I mentioned Boston University before, they are in direct competition with Northeastern University. And as I previously mentioned, these schools talk to each other, so they compare their list of students. So if your top school is Boston University, you'll want to make sure that you apply to Northeastern too. And sorry about this. And I think I just got kicked out. So bear with me while I bring up the workshop again. Sorry about this. And I apologize, my presentation closed down.
It's a rough night. The thunderstorms are moving in for everybody too. It's gonna be a rough evening.
Yep.
I'll take a moment to talk about Sage while you're
Perfect.
While you're bringing your program back up. So while we have this quick interlude due to technical issues, I did want to let everybody know that we're proud to be part of a program called Sage Tuition Rewards, and we'll be offering everybody the chance to enroll. What it is, it's sort of a frequent flyer type of program, but it's frequent points used for scholarships at about 450 colleges around the country. We are able to enroll people for free. Parents enroll as a sponsor, and then they can enroll their children and gift those points to their children over time. The deadline for students to be enrolled into it is August 31st of their rising junior year. So those that have juniors will have to move quickly on it. It's a very simple enrollment process. All I'll need is basic information from you. You can just let us know that you're interested in participating in the program. It is completely free. You get 500 points just for enrolling, and you earn points by various financial transactions that you might make over the years in helping to prepare to pay for college. It's a wonderful program. There's some very good schools in the program, and you actually can earn up to a full year's tuition by participating in the program. So at the end of our presentation tonight, or afterwards, if you get us your contact information, we'll be happy to give you more details on the program and enroll you in it as well.
Okay, and I'm almost there. Here we go. All right. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
So, okay, so we're talking about your plan for financial aid before filing financial aid forms. We recommend at least 3 to 4 years before the base year, which is your student's incoming college freshman year. So 3 to 4 years before is when they're in 9th and 10th grade. In reality, even that is considered late stage college planning. You really should start developing a plan on how you're going to pay for college as soon as possible after your child is born. And here's what you need to know. You also want to make sure that you know certain things for planning in advance. First of all, you want to know how the SAI is calculated, what is being assessed and how much. You want to know what plans or strategies are available to implement that are both prudent, which is good for retirement planning, and at the same time can increase your financial aid eligibility. You want to determine ahead of time what forms are required by the school, meaning do they require just the FAFSA, the CSS profile, the non-custodial profile, institutional financial aid applications, verification forms, and on and on. And a really important note here, financial aid applications are going to be based on your student aid index from the prior year. And what does that mean? That means that the financial aid applications for 2024, that's right, upcoming sophomores, are going to be based on your income information from 2022. So rising juniors on this year's income. This is why we say 3 to 4 years in advance. So the plan is to make sure that we reach both our objectives and our goals. Our objectives, of course, are to have enough funds for college while we're saving for retirement with minimal impact on our monthly cash flow. And if the strategy is appropriate for college and retirement, it's a win-win. Our goals are to have our returns exceed college inflation of 5% per year, where the investment is tax-deferred growth and tax-favored access for college, is favorable for financial aid, can be used for college and retirement, and has tax-favored access for retirement. So how are you expected to pay? Let's talk about the portion that you're paying. As we said before, this is a juggling act. So there's really 5 ways to pay for college. You can pay with your earnings or your income. This means that you need to examine your budget in advance to determine how much money from your pay you can devote monthly. Where are you going to find that money? You need to figure this out in advance. You can take it out of your cash, your investments, your assets, your piggy bank. The bad part about this is that the disbursement will show up on your tax return and artificially raise your adjusted gross income for the year, which will raise your student aid index. But if you do this before your base year and put it in an account that's out of the financial aid formula, it's a win-win. Use your home equity to pay for college. Many top universities will actually add your equity to your financial aid or to assess it against you when determining your contribution. So again, if this is going to artificially raise your adjusted gross income and in turn your student aid index, but if you do it before the base year, put it in an account that is out of the financial aid formula, it's a win-win. Retirement. Now, we list this as a way to pay because there's always someone that comes up to us afterwards and asks. Your financial aid advisor will tell you that you can take a loan against your retirement or get a disbursement without any penalties. And that is correct. However, you have to keep in mind that you're now depleting your retirement account. And as I've heard so many times, you can borrow for college, but you can't borrow for retirement. And of course, you probably want scholarships or grants. I have a feeling that's why you're participating in this workshop. So for scholarships, again, your student needs to be spending their 4 years in high school, positioning themselves to be eligible. It's not something that they can come to us when your student is a rising senior. And loans. And I always bring up loans because your student gets loan and you can get loan. However, the student loans are only $5,500 the freshman year, $6,500 sophomore year, and $7,500 for junior and senior year. So barely going to cover the tuition, never mind the cost of attendance. And you need to figure in the interest because even though the loans are deferred until your student stops matriculating, the interest still accrues. So if you don't pay the interest quarterly or annually, it's added to the principal, and then you're charged interest on interest. And now we've talked about this so that you know you may be penalized for savings. So the Department of Education assumes that any assets that you have outside of your retirement plans must be for expenditures such as college. 12% of your investments will count towards your student aid index. That includes 529 plans. So a 529 plan, so you know, it's tax-free college savings plan. And if you use a 529 plan for saving for college, it grows and you cash money out and use it for qualified education expenses. Any of that growth is completely tax-free. How does that sound? I don't know about you, but anything that has to do with tax-free and not paying federal government taxes, I'm all about. But that's what the federal government says. I've got a really great plan for you. Save money for college like a good parent. You can have that money tax-free on the gain and everybody wins. Parents go, yay, we love that. But that's the IRS's rules. So the Department of Education, so now you're going to stand in line to apply for financial aid. And what does the Department of Education say about your 529 plan? Well, you really shouldn't have saved the money there because it's going to drive up your student aid index. 12% of your 529 plan will count towards your expected contribution. So that's going to cost you, well, if you had $100,000, that's going to cost you $12,000 a year in lost financial aid. So this is one of those situations where learning about how the formulas are calculated affecting your student aid index early is going to benefit you. I'm going to take it a step further. Since many of your private schools, since their money, their rules, they are going to take the money out of the parent's name and put it in the child's name. Now, why do they do that? Well, who's the 529 plan for? It's for the students, the beneficiary, right? So the college is going to say, no, I don't care what the Department of Education says. That's an asset for the student to go to college. Well, the formula says the student assets are calculated at 20%. And then I could show you the good, bad, and the ugly of the plans, but I think you get the point. I do want to say one thing, though. Don't leave here. Go to the bank tomorrow, rip out all the money out of your 529 plans. This is circumstantial. It's based on your family's circumstances. So if you have a question about your 529 plan, how it's affecting you and what you should do, don't hesitate to schedule an initial consultation so we can chat with you about it. Okay, Florida prepaid. Who has Florida prepaid? So now that I beat up 529 plans, let me just tell you, Florida prepaid may be one of the best returns on investments that you have. And if you paid for housing too, then you are way ahead. But keep in mind, Florida prepaid only covers part of the bill. And it's for in-state public universities. There's still the cost of housing, meal plans, books and supplies, miscellaneous cost, which, just so you know, is about 75% of the bill. Keep in mind, though, that your Florida prepaid is an investment. As an investment, it's going to be assessed at 12% towards your expected contribution. A little bit of good news, though. As an investment and not a state plan, you can actually use the value at any school, public or private, in-state, out-of-state, doesn't matter. So that same $12,000 is going to be worth $12,000 whether your student goes to UF or Boston, as I mentioned, Boston University. Okay, so let's talk a little bit of something not to do, because the less you know, the more money you may pay. Gift money can reduce your financial aid eligibility. So let's pretend you have a relative that intends on help pay for college. So a couple of things you need to know. If the money is gifted to your student, it's then considered a student asset, which is assessed at 20%. So $10,000 would add another $2,000 to your student aid index. Example of these are UTMAs or UGMAs, or perhaps they established a trust. All of them are included in a financial aid formula. If your relative sends the money to the school is going to thank them emphatically, turn to you, and ask for your portion still. However, if your relative gives you the money, you deposit it in your account, and then you pay from your account to the school, well, now you just paid $10,000 towards your expected contribution. Well done. So here's one of the things that you want to do. We discussed what does count towards your expected contribution. You should know that there are assets that do not count towards your expected contribution. And you want to familiarize yourself with asset strategies that can effectively lower your student aid index, such as reallocating the funds to an asset that's not assessed by the Department of Education. This can be retirement accounts, permanent life insurance, annuities, things similar to that. I always make a joke. This is a perfect time to spend money on personal items. It's time to buy that new large screen home theater system or buy a car or things that you need to buy anyways. What's going to happen? It's going to lower your cash and savings, which will lower your student aid index. Okay, but wait, there's more. We have been focusing on the cost of undergraduate education for only one child. Remember, there's other things that you need to consider. First of all, is your student interested in pursuing a master's degree or an MBA or JD or MD? That's another 2 to 4 years with little to no need-based assistance other than loans. Do you have more than one student? Well, while you're planning, you need to factor in funds for their college too. Once upon a time, we were taught to have enough savings to cover 3 months of salary, in case of emergency, such as losing your job or a pandemic. And you got to make sure that you're covered for short-term care and long-term care. And this is all while still planning for retirement. Something else to keep in mind, the life expectancy has increased dramatically, 1% each year. So we need to plan to make sure that we have enough income to support ourselves. You want to make sure that you have enough retirement funds to support you until you're at least 80, if not more. Perfect example, my mom, she turned 98 this year. So you want to have the security of being prepared for these things. Okay, we talked about one of the reasons families don't apply for financial aid is that you believe your income is too high. Well, what if that actually is the case? You make too much money. Well, there are a couple things that you need to know about that. Just because you can afford the cost of attendance doesn't mean that you want to pay full retail price. There are some inventive strategies and planning that you can make your money work, and that's going to provide you the funds for college. So this is going to require some things. It's going to require a full cash flow and financial analysis. Some of the areas where you can take advantage of financial aid rules are your savings with cash flow, income and asset planning, several strategies if you're a business owner. I could spend 2 hours or more talking just about plans for business owners, tax planning, loans. If long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, and it can fit into your family's long-term strategies, it might make some sense to look at these options as well. Because just because you make a decent amount of money doesn't mean you're out of the world of getting help for college. We just may be looking at that strategically from a different direction. And just so you know, the cumulative benefit of implementing a variety of strategies that can often yield a greater real savings to your family on total out-of-pocket college costs than can financial aid. And these strategies are more predictable and under your control, as opposed to being controlled by the school with respect to financial aid. Okay, so let's talk about your next steps. So what do parents really want? You ask yourself, what is important to your family? We found that parents look at this process with concern. Sure, you want your children to be independent, happy, and successful. Many of you are under the assumption that if your child doesn't go to what you consider the right college, they won't be able to succeed. So finding a college can take on a special meaning. Of course, what parent doesn't want their child to get lots of scholarships? And you might have said to your child, you do the work, we'll figure out a way to pay for it. And then they had the audacity to listen to you and get accepted to top schools. So now reality is starting to sink in and you may be rethinking that promise. And you'd like to keep your promise without sacrificing your retirement. So at the end of the day, you might not always be saying it, but what you really want is help. So the cost of going alone, you might ask, Barbara, couldn't we just do this ourselves? Absolutely. So long as you're willing to become an expert on the admissions process and its impact on financial aid, as well as the thousands of pages of rules and regulations required to take full advantage of the process. Is it better to find someone to help you, a professional? Well, each family is unique and it takes an experienced financial aid specialist to know how to advise you. And a financial aid specialist will help you determine how much the schools will expect you to pay, how to lower that cost, and how to put together a plan to pay your portion. And you should have your plan on how to pay in place by the time your students are freshmen, and your student should start preparing for college their freshman year. So this is one of my favorite sayings. And let's face it, hope is not a plan, doesn't pay the bills. Planning and preparation pays the bills. And when hope fails, debt happens. So no matter what you do, you need to be able to answer the following questions. What has your student done to determine their career, occupation, or majors that interest them? And does your student done to get noticed by colleges? And are those actions the right ones? What are you going to be expected to pay for college? How prepared are you for paying that? So if you're interested at this point, you can schedule your initial consultation. You can just answer yes in one of the chats. Make sure that we have your information, and we're going to contact everyone, making sure that if you have any specific questions about your special circumstances, they could obviously be something you don't want to share. We get that. That would be a reason to schedule your consultation. So we do have just a couple of rules. We do respectfully insist that both parents attend the meeting. Don't ask our staff to make an exception, because they're going to have to tell you no. Our consultations are typically $297, but if you schedule your appointment by this coming Monday, we will waive the consultation fee, and it's complimentary. Now, you don't have to come see us right away. You have to come see us, though, within the next 3 weeks. And of course, if you found this presentation informative, I hope you did. It's been our genuine pleasure to share this time with you. I hope you got lots of information out of it. You're probably thinking of a few of your friends that you want to tell about the information you got, and that's great. So tell them about our next workshop, which is going to be on Saturday, August 14th from 10:30 to 11:30. And we will send you an email so that you can pass it on. And so I'm going to just, give me 1 second here. And I will go ahead and open the floor if anybody has any questions.
The only question that I had that I wasn't able to answer on the chat was, someone asked if you could share the slide with the changes to the financial aid process. That was one of those slides in the beginning of the presentation.
Yep, give me 1 minute. I believe this is it. Yep. That should have, doesn't look like it did. Okay. So we'll do it the old-fashioned way. Yeah, they really change things in an effort to make the process simpler. Not better, simpler. Here we go. Okay, so let me just, okay, so the income protection allowance, every year they determine an amount of money of the parent's income or adjusted gross income that is protected against the financial aid formulas. And that actually is going to go up a little bit. But one of the biggest changes that they made is when they determined your expected family contribution, it was for the family, meaning if you had 2 or 3 students in school, that your family contribution was for, it would be split up between the 2 or 3 students. That is, they are taking that away. That's why they changed the name to the Student Aid Index. This is a student aid number based on how much the family will pay for that student in college. So the asset allowance, the asset protection allowance decreased, meaning they're going to assess more of the assets. But the really other big thing is that the asset assessment goes from 5.6 to more than double to 12%. So if your funds are not making at least 12%, then you're actually going to lose money, because in addition to being assessed 12% in the financial aid formulas, you're not making enough interest to, or, interest to cover that. It's like losing money. Some of you may have heard last year about some wealthy families that emancipated their students so that they would be considered independent students and be able to apply for financial aid based on what they made. And of course, the assessment would be considered as an independent student back to what it was, back to what they were looking at for the parents. Well, they've changed that. So anything over 9410 is also going to be assessed at 50%. So they changed that to kind of counteract that. So meaning if your student wants to try to pretend that they're independent, they have to prove to the colleges that they can afford and live, self-sustaining, meaning making somewhere between 30, 40,000, let's say, a year. So their income protection allowance is still 9410. So now, and anything above that, so let's say the income protection allowance is 10,000 and your student made 30,000, just so I can do the math. So that 20,000, now 10,000 is going to be assessed for the financial aid. Whereas if the parents were making 30,000, they would qualify for 100% need-based aid. So that was one of the big differences. Did I say that way you guys understood it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
That looks like it was it.
Okay.
So Barbara, Ken, thank you guys so much for your time and your information. It was really informative. I didn't know about some of these changes myself, so it was really good to get caught up on the latest and greatest in financial aid. And if you can just, again, where's the best place for everyone to reach you?
The best way to reach us, if someone wants to put it, I could go to the last screen. Hold on. Has our contact information. So the best way to reach us is you can email any of us, but the one that goes to the most of us is info, INFO, at green, GREENE, ed.org. And the best phone number to reach us at is our toll-free number, which is 833-473-3631. And that's 833 Green 1. So there's our contact information right there at the bottom of the screen.
Great. Well, thank you guys again for everything, and have a good night. Have a great rest of the week. Stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.